Pursuant to Internal Revenue Service guidance, be advised that any federal tax advice contained in this program is not intended to be used, and it cannot be used by any person or entity for the purpose of avoiding any tax penalties that may be imposed by the Internal Revenue Service or any other U.S. federal taxing authority or agency, or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any transaction or matter addressed in this show. The opinions expressed by the host and the guests are their own and may not be used as authoritative advice. Any use of this material without the written consent of the host is strictly prohibited.
Welcome back. I am your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer.
I was going to say, and before I was interrupted by the commercial, that have you put my picture on the Facebook page yet? Do we have a Facebook page?
I have not put your picture on the Facebook page. I want to save our listeners from that
that awful mess. So then I'm like the unknown.
You're on the videos, Jim. They're on. We have video. Remember, we have videos of all the shows. Right. You can go and watch the show in full. You can listen to the podcast. You can. We have different clips of different sections.
How will they know it's me?
So this is you're the other guy. We have clips from each. From the blog post.
So like us on Facebook is what I'm saying. Please like us on like us.
This is the blog post.
The blog part, Steve.
Segment.
So what is the blog post for this week, Steve?
So recently I've been writing articles about Illinois mortgage foreclosure law and how it affects people and what kind of strategies you can take to try to save your home. And I've talked about litigation. I've talked about trying to do some discovery. I've talked about loan modifications. And this week I'm going to talk about how to use Chapter 13 to save your home. And Chapter 13 is in the bankruptcy law. Remember, if you think of the bankruptcy code as a book, like every other book, it's divided into
chapters. Chapter 13 comes right after Chapter 12.
It does come after Chapter 12.
And right before Chapter 14.
I don't believe there is a Chapter 14, but hey, well, who's counting? Anyway, this is how Chapter 13. If they file a foreclosure action against you, you can use Chapter 13 to save your home. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about Chapter 13 in order to save your home is because I think sometimes people overlook it. And because we hear so much about these loan modifications. And remember, I talked about loan modifications last week. And so if you have questions about it, you can go to the blog. You can read the article that I wrote. You can watch the video segment about that, about loan modifications. And I explain that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about loan modifications in the listener question. Or
there is no listener question anymore. We've changed it.
That's the Dr. Fader question.
Dr. Richard Fader is going to ask you questions.
That's right. So that we're going to talk a little bit more about loan modifications there. But this, I wanted to talk about Chapter 13 again because I think what happens is people start talking to their mortgage company and looking for a loan modification, and sometimes that loan modification it takes a lot longer than most people think. And sometimes if you get it early and you're not that far behind, then Chapter 13 might be a very good option for you to try to save your home. So I'm going to talk about how that works, okay? So again, Chapter 13, the title of Chapter 13 is Adjustment of Debt for Individuals with Regular Income. And what happens under a Chapter 13 is you devise a plan to repay your creditors over a period of time. Now, because your mortgage is a secured debt, means that they have a lien on your home, and if you don't pay them, they can foreclose on your home, and that's what we're talking about if you're in foreclosure. And bankruptcy won't stop that. They still have the lien. They can still foreclose. You can protect yourself from a deficiency, and we're going to get into that in the next couple of weeks about protecting yourself from a deficiency if, in fact, you can't save your home through loan modifications and these other things that we've been talking about. So in Chapter 13, again, it's adjustment of debt. So what happens is I have to pay all of the arrears back to the mortgage company. But so what happens? Here's a typical situation. A gentleman, maybe his rent or his mortgage is $1,700 a month, and he's laid off. And so he misses 3 or 4 months or 5 months in mortgage payments. And then the mortgage payments, now he goes back to work, but he can't. The mortgage company
will never catch up.
The mortgage company won't allow him to start making mortgage payments again, even though he can, unless he pays the full amount due. So now I owe whatever it is. So let's say he owes $12,000. Okay, so I owe $12,000, and the mortgage company will not let me make mortgage payments again until I pay them the $12,000. Or until they do a loan modification. But again, every month now, I'm going to owe more and more, another $1,700, another $1,700, another $1,700. And eventually that number is going to get very big. But early on...
$12,000 is pretty big.
That's true. But early on, if it's $12,000, for instance, if I can do a Chapter 13, Chapter 13 will allow me to pay back that $12,000 over a period of 5 years. Okay, so if I have... if I paid $100 a month for 5 years, that would be $6,000 because 60 months. If I paid $200 a month,
did you do that in your head there?
if I paid $200 a month, that'd be $12,000. That's enough for me to reinstate my mortgage. And so in the meantime, as I'm paying that $200 a month, the mortgage company is obligated to accept my regular monthly mortgage payments again. So I'm not falling farther and farther behind. Again, if I wait too long in the loan modification process and maybe that number grows to be $30,000, well, now it's $500 a month. Okay, and if I have credit cards, and so for instance, maybe I have credit cards that total $30,000. Well, under Chapter 13, I may be able to pay my unsecured creditors as little as 10 cents on the dollar. So that's only $3,000. So if I spread that out over 60 months, that's $50 a month. So in my example, he
doesn't even have a calculator here, ladies and gentlemen.
So in my example, if I owe $12,000 to my mortgage company and I have $30,000 in unsecured debt, I could pay $250 a month. Plus, I have to pay a portion to the trustee. So let's say it's $275 a month, and I could pay my regular monthly mortgage payment again of $1,700. Okay, so that might be something I can do. If that number goes to $500 or $600, now it becomes a lot less possible for me to do a Chapter 13, to get into a Chapter 13 and save my house. So the longer I wait, the bigger that number gets, the more likely it is that Chapter 13 won't help me save my home. And that's why it's so important to see somebody early. Okay, so when you're going to be in foreclosure or right after you get served, get some help. Talk to me or talk to somebody, but talk to somebody about how to try to save your home if that's your biggest goal. And oftentimes that is people's their first goal is, I want to save my home.
That their biggest investment.
Sometimes you look at the numbers and then they turn around and say, you know what, I don't want to save my home because the numbers just get so big that you're going to be giving all your money to your mortgage company for the next 5 years, and maybe that won't work for you. And again, we're going to talk about if you can't save your home, we're going to talk about that in the next couple of weeks. We're going to talk about trying to protect yourself from a deficiency. And there's ways to do that. And again, you have to go in this with a strategy. What if this happens? What am I going to do? What if that happens? What am I going to do? So you have to kind of lay it out early. I always say you need to get where you want to go, you have to have a map. So you have to sit down early and then come up with a map to where you want to go. And if where you want to go is save your home, well, then we have to figure out what kind of strategy is going to allow you to do that and save your home.
So you're like a map maker.
That's right. Coming up with a strategy is a map maker. That's correct. Now, one thing that I want to mention also is that even though you file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, see, when I file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, I haven't changed my mortgage. So that means my mortgage payments are going to be exactly what they were before. Okay, so it's because the same agreement. But just because I filed Chapter 13 doesn't mean I still can't get a loan modification.
Oh.
So I've seen people go into Chapter 13 and then apply. So now I can start making my regular monthly mortgage payments again. So I'm not falling farther and farther and farther behind. And I'm not risking losing my home because even if they don't give me a loan modification, it may be difficult, but I have this remedy and I in Chapter 13 to save my house. But again, I have seen people go into Chapter 13 and then get a loan modification too. So you could do both. And again, if your biggest goal is saving your home, you don't want to go down that road where there's a sale date and now you're scrambling to try to save your house. So start early, get some help and get some good advice. And getting somebody that understands not only foreclosure law, but also bankruptcy and loan modification.
But you understand all that, and that's why wouldn't they call you?
That's right. And I always like to think of myself more as a financial I come up with financial remedies. Okay, so
I think of you differently, but
yeah.
that's something else.
Okay, so again, if you're having some trouble and you need help, you should call me, and you should call me at 312-664-6649. We'll sit down and we'll draw a map to get you to where you want to go.
You know, you forgot to tell them you're an author too, aren't you?
I am. I wrote a book. It's called Deal with Your IRS Problems Today. And you can find that book and all of my articles on ChicagoTaxTeam.com.
And he will even sign the book and send it to you if you call.
If you call and ask 312-664-6649.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.